Well, the province is announcing about $11 billion in relief and support for workers and businesses to help weather the impact of U.S. tariffs. Right now, we're joined live by Ontario's Finance Minister Peter Bethlenfalvy. Minister, thanks a lot for joining us. So we're talking about $11 billion. This is going to be broken down into two categories. So there's $9 billion for the businesses and $2 billion for workers. Let's talk about that.
Well, thank you, Bakari. This is real money for businesses, $11 billion broken down, as you just highlighted, $9 billion for tax deferrals for 6 months, so companies can choose to defer some of the provincially administered taxes. That's really effective. And then secondly, the WSI premiums, they are, that's like money into the businesses. We'll be rolling that out in the next little while. So this is real money. That's going to help businesses in a period that, as you just reported, is very uncertain. And we want to provide some certainty for the workers who, I'm sure there's a lot of anxiety out there, and for businesses employing those workers.
We're also talking about $400 million in health and safety programs.
Well, it's a $2 billion through the WSIB. So we've already done in two tranches, $3 billion. So this will be another $2 billion over the last 3 years, I believe. So that's $5 billion, $2 billion announced today. So that's meaningful relief. We campaigned on that. And Bakari, it also underscores why it's so important to be fiscally responsible. As your finance minister, we had 2 credit rating upgrades, first time in 20 years. We've got our lowest borrowing costs in over a decade. It's important to be fiscally responsible so that we can afford world-class healthcare and education, but at the same time also face the challenges in an uncertain world. And that's why we're able to make the announcements of $11 billion today.
And speaking of fiscal responsibility, how long can the province sustain this?
We have a lot of firepower on our balance sheet. And of course, it's not just us. It's the federal government as well that we're working closely together with. They've announced a bunch of programs. But it's also thinking about building the economy of tomorrow, building things faster, more of it, focused on regulations, permitting, encouraging workers and giving them the skills right across the country, the nation building type projects. So we need to boost our economy, both for the short term and for the long term. And we have the firepower because we focused on being fiscally responsible throughout our mandate.
Okay, not to look too far ahead, but is there a plan to recoup this money?
Well, companies they still owe it. So it's kind of like an interest-free loan for the $9 billion. That's meaningful for a lot of companies. The WSI premiums, though, that goes right into their coffers. There's some $2 billion of rebates that'll be rolled out. So this is real money. Don't forget, we take a lot of other measures to help businesses retrain and reskill workers through the Skills Development Fund. We're doing a lot of infrastructure. We're looking at accelerating some of that infrastructure, announcing new projects. So there's a range of things that we're going to do to support the workers in each and one of our communities and make us more resilient and stronger as an economic nation. We want to be the most competitive economy in the G7. And as Ontario goes, Canada goes.
Okay, so let's take this scenario. The climate does not change. It worsens. What happens October 1st?
We'll look at what happens, You ask me what's going to happen next week. One thing I will tell you for sure is that we will use all the tools in our toolkit. Everything's on the table. We'll look at every option to help the businesses, help the people who work, the workers. I want them to, they're feeling a lot of anxiety right now, right across the province. People putting food on the table, paying the rent. So we need to do things in the short term. But we have to also have an eye on the long term and transition our economy. The world trading order is changing. I'm very confident in Ontario, and I'm very confident in Canadians' ability to pivot in this environment. And we'll do what it takes, both near term, midterm, and long term, to make sure we're successful.
What are some of the items that were part of conversations to further help those who will really need it, who are going to be affected, these workers at these auto plants?
Yeah, no question. And, we said we're standing behind every commitment to the auto sector, whether they're electric vehicle supports, building things, retraining workers. We want them, though, back at work. We're working closely with the federal government. As you know, they're responsible for employment insurance, so for the temporary layoffs, providing financial support. We've advocated for rolling that out faster and more of it and longer, and the federal government is doing that. The revenues from the tariffs have to go to the auto companies, the steel companies, and other companies affected, and their workers. So that's the federal government who collects those tariff revenues. They're going to be in the order of billions coming into Ontario. I think thirdly, interprovincial trade barriers. Doug Ford, our premier, has taken a leadership role in the country. He's Mr. Canada, I call him, to make sure that we are doing what we can in Canada, reduce trade barriers so that we can actually grow markets for our companies that exist now, which increases jobs and wealth right here in Canada.
Minister, as we wrap up, what more is needed to make sure that Canadians, Ontarians, Torontonians will be able to feed their families as we continue to weather this?
Well, I think number one is, we have to respond each and to every twist and turn. When the president declares economic war in 150 countries, we're in a very different environment. I've been through unfortunately, a lot of crises, 9/11, the financial crash. I was even around for the 22% drop in the Dow in one day back in October of 1987. The coordinated response is critical. Thinking through not just the short-term supports that you can put in place, but thinking long-term is absolutely critical. And one thing I just absolutely want to reinforce is that we've been through tough times before. We're going to get through these tough times when we work together.
Okay, $11 billion for businesses and workers to help weather this tariff trade war. Finance Minister Peter Bethlenfalvy, thank you very much for your time this afternoon.